All right, I think we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you to everyone for joining us today. You are here for the UCEAP Scholarships to Support Study Abroad presentation. My name is Bryn Lemon, and I use she, her, hers pronouns. I'm the Scholarships and Alumni Engagement Coordinator here in our office in Goleta. I've been working for UCEAP for about 2 years now in this position, but I am also an alumna of our programs. I studied abroad at the University of Edinburgh in 2015 to 2016 on our year-long program. My junior year at UC Santa Barbara. I am a graduate of UC Santa Barbara with a degree in English literature. And following my graduation from UC Santa Barbara, I worked in our Edinburgh office as a program intern for a year from 2017 to 2018. And following that, chose to go to Chile and teach English for a year, where I wrapped up all of that before coming back to our office here in Santa Barbara. So below my title here, you'll see my email address as well as our scholarship address. So if you have any questions following the presentation, feel free to email me there. I'm happy to answer at either address. So if you have any questions about your application or anything we cover in the presentation today that we don't have the time to address, I'd be more than happy to talk to you about it via email. So let's give you a general overview of our system-wide scholarship portfolio now. Our office is separate from individual campus offices. So if you are a student at UC Santa Barbara or UC Riverside, your campus will have a particular study abroad office on site. We are located in Goleta, California, and we do offer separate scholarships from all of our campus-based programs. So what we offer here in our system-wide office are the UCEAP Global Scholarships. These were previously entitled the UCEAP Promise Awards. So if you have heard anyone mention a UCEAP Promise Award, we have chosen to rename them the UCEAP Global Scholarship. If you've already begun your application, as many of you mentioned that you have, you'll notice that this is our overarching application for all of our scholarships in our system-wide portfolio. So you will begin an application for the UCEAP Global Scholarship. And once your application is in the system, this will qualify you for our named awards. So our named awards are different donor-based scholarships that we will go over later in a little more depth, but these include our Olivia Chanship Award, our Jasmine Jahan Shahi Award, and the Guardian Scholars. A lot of different opportunities available there, and the way that you apply for those is by applying for our global scholarships, and if you are within the top 10% of selected students, we will consider your application for our named awards. So we'll go over that in a little bit. I didn't hear anyone mention in the chat that they're going abroad for the year so far, but I know that there are some students going abroad in fall of next year, so they might consider applying for this still. So we will briefly go over our year-long scholarships. These include our DUTTENHAVER scholarships, as well as our Paul DUTTENHAVER extension scholarships, and our newest award, which we're really excited to bring on, the Chris Borton Memorial Scholarship. So we'll review all of those a little bit later in the presentation. We'll also give a very brief overview of some awards that we offer once returning from your program. So these include the internship awards and the undergraduate research awards, as well as a graduate school scholarship. So we'll go over all of those later on. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, please submit them to the Q&A, and I will look at them at the very end. So let's start with discussing eligibility. So any student, any UC student enrolled at a UC that is going abroad on UCEAP is eligible to apply for our awards. So we do not have any citizenship, residency, or other eligibility requirements. If you apply and are ultimately selected for a UCEAP program, you are eligible for one of our scholarships. So we highly recommend that you apply for them. Whether you think that you are an outstanding candidate or not, we think that you should apply and certainly get your name in the hat and get your application out there. This is a competitive application process, but any student who is a student at the UC going abroad in UCEAP is welcome to apply for our awards. Briefly, to give you an idea of how our selection process works, and we will go over a little more detail about this later, at least in terms of how our selection process works from a reviewer side of things, but I do want to let everyone know that you are essentially competing with students from your own UC campus. I know the statistic can be a little bit confusing here, these graphics can be, but we try to mirror the amount of selected students from each campus based on the amount of participants from that campus. So for example, UCLA in 2017 had about they made up about 15% of our student body abroad. And based on applications, we offered about 16% of our scholarships to students at UCLA. We want to ensure that we spread our funding as widely as possible across the campuses and really ensure that all the students who are receiving these funds are at different campuses and have the same opportunity based on their own campuses competition. So here is a little overview of how the UCEAP Global Scholarships work. We offer $1,000 each for summer programs, as well as $2,000 for quarter, semester, or year-long study. Those quarters or semesters are broken down in the fall and spring. Spring will include winter, so I've had a few questions about that. If you are going abroad in the winter, you will be applying in the spring cycle. So you must submit your applications by 11:59 p.m. That is Pacific Standard Time on any of the following due dates, depending on the program you're applying for. So if you're going abroad in the summer, the application will open in January, likely on January 15th, barring any complications, and it will close on February 15th at a strict time of 11:59 Pacific Standard Time. Fall and year applications will open on January 15th as well. You have a little more time to craft these applications, and they will be due March 15th. And your spring and off-cycle year programs, these are programs in Australia or New Zealand, sometimes Japan as well, will open in August. These, for this particular year, open on August 15th and are due by September 15th. So that's just about a week from today. Again, that deadline is firm. Please ensure that you are submitting your application on time, if not before the deadline. And you are welcome to continue making edits to your application up until the very last minute of the deadline. So what I recommend is once you have a good base, go ahead and hit submit and continue editing your application. That way, in case there's any crazy technical complication, you at least have your application in the system, even if a few little minor tweaks don't get added at the very end. Do ensure that you've submitted it well in advance. If you have any complications with technical issues submitting your application, please let me know, and I'd be happy to go over that with you. And let's talk a little bit about how to apply. So with our UCEAP Global Scholarships, there are two different aspects of the application process. You will have a form that you need to fill out. We have both a general application as well as an opportunity-specific application. So you will be filling in a lot of general information about yourself, for example, your name, your student ID number, your gender identity, and other characteristics about yourself, as well as filling out a statement of purpose. So your statement of purpose is the most important aspect of your application. It's where we really want to see your personality shine through, get to know you a little bit better, and learn a lot about your experience as a student and what you're looking forward to abroad. The statement of purpose for the Global Scholarship is going to be 500 words. It is a narrow parameter. We want you to be concise and clear in describing your experience as a student. So I recommend, if you haven't already started your statement of purpose, that you start as soon as possible. The way to find the application as well as the statement of purpose is through the link below that you'll see here, application portal, access to the link on this website at academicworks.com. Go ahead and follow that link. Feel free to write it down now or take a picture of it, and that will get you to our application site. From there, we want you to create an account and indicate your interest in UCEAP scholarships. So what you'll want to do is create a separate account. This is not through your general application for a UCEAP program. You will need to create an individual account here and start a new application process. We do have students sometimes have trouble getting in here on their UC address. So if your address is, for example, bryn@ucsb.edu, sometimes the confirmation link will not send directly to your UC address for some reason. So just feel free to make a separate account under a personal email address. That's going to be the best way to go about doing that. I know it's a little complicated. If you have any trouble with that, please just email me and I'll try to get you in the system, and we'll work through that technical difficulty together. If you have any questions about this, go ahead and put it in the chat now. Alrighty, let's talk about award selection really quickly. So we talked about eligibility, that any UC student is eligible to apply for awards, and let's discuss the ways in which your applications are reviewed. So the application selection will be primarily based on academic merit and integration of a selected UCEAP program into a student's academic and career goals as demonstrated in a personal statement. This is really important, and this is a point that we will address at multiple points throughout this presentation. We really want to know as reviewers that you have done a lot of research into your program and you know exactly why you chose this university, why you chose this country, what about the academics at this university intrigue you? Is there a particular professor that you really want to work with while abroad? In my case, when I studied abroad at the University of Edinburgh, I was doing English literature, and Scottish literature was a really fascinating subject for me. I looked up the courses available, and there were some really interesting courses like horror and mystery, romanticism, a lot of different courses that were not being offered at my home campus. And this was a great thing to mention in my application because it demonstrated that I had done a lot of research about my program. I knew what professors I wanted to study under. And I also knew that Edinburgh has a Fringe Festival every year where they bring in a ton of artists and playwrights and exciting new theatrical works and just performances throughout the whole city. And I knew that all of those were things that were really important to me in my study abroad experience. So being as specific as possible about how your country and host university will play into your goals is really, really, really important. Students with financial need or who are traditionally underrepresented in UCEAP programs should include the impact these elements have had on their decision to study abroad. So if you are receiving financial aid, or if you're not necessarily receiving financial aid, but you do have financial need, for example, if your parents make above the income level that is required to receive financial aid, but let's say you have 7 other siblings who are abroad or who are at a university, or you have other older family members that you're supporting, everyone's financial situation is different. And we would really love for you to speak to that and explain that to us so that we're aware of the burdens that are on you and what you're looking for in terms of funding and how our scholarships can help to play a role in allowing you to study abroad and giving you that freedom and confidence to study abroad. Underrepresented students should include those who have studied from who have transferred to a UC from a California community college or state university, veterans, first-generation college students, participants of year-long programs, and students on programs where the majority of classes are taught in a language other than English. So all of these characteristics here are less common in our general student body, and we really want to reward students who are coming from a less traditional path and offer them some funding to ensure that they are able to study abroad, because they've obviously encountered quite a lot of obstacles in the process of choosing to study abroad. If you're the first person in your family to ever consider going to university, let alone going abroad, leaving the country for the first time. Students on year-long programs, only about 6% of our students do go on year-long programs, which is actually double the national average of only 3% of students on year-long programs. I absolutely understand that it's very difficult to fit in a year within your general academic schedule, but as someone who did study abroad for a year and someone who then went on to live several more years abroad, I highly recommend a year if you have any possibility of doing it. It really allows you to integrate within a community and to learn a language and to get as involved as possible with new friends, with a whole different culture. It's a really wonderful experience, and we do try to honor that by offering several different awards to students studying abroad for the year. Finally, yeah, programs taught in a language other than English. Again, this is less common at this point, which is understandable. It's scary to go abroad and study in another language that isn't English, but we really want to honor and prioritize students who do choose that path. So if that's something that you're choosing and selecting to do, we really want to ensure that you're mentioning that within your personal statement, and we do look at that when we are going through the selection process. To give you a little insight into how the selection process works as well, your application will be reviewed by at least 3 different reviewers, and you'll be given a score based on a set list of qualities that we're looking for. For example, your academic preparation, your academic goals while you're abroad, and how your career goals fit into your experiences abroad, whether there are specific opportunities that you are looking for while abroad. For example, if you really want to get in touch with an old family heritage that you've never really had the experience to explore or the opportunity to explore, or learning a new language. For example, if you want to be a nurse in Los Angeles and you think that learning Spanish is a really important aspect of becoming a nurse in Los Angeles, then we want you to reference that within your application, and that will stand out to a reviewer. So your application will be reviewed anonymously as well. So if you share any personal characteristics with us or anything that might feel scary to share, just keep in mind that your application will be reviewed anonymously. And we do our best to respect that and restrict any reviewers from having any idea of who they're reviewing. Here's a look at the form that you'll be filling out. It does ask a lot of general questions, as I mentioned before, things from your name to your contact information, et cetera, et cetera. You will be prompted to go through with a conditional app, just filling out some additional information about which program you're selecting. And finally, you will be routed to our recommended opportunities. In this example here, I've only been recommended the UCEAP Global Scholarships because I did not indicate my preference for a year-long study abroad program. But if you have, you will be recommended our year-long awards as well below here. You will go over and click the apply button here that you see in orange, and that will allow you to start your conditional application here. You must fill out this application. If you've just filled out the general application, unfortunately, that does not qualify you for any of our awards. You must go through with the entire application process. So be sure you do click there. You can also make edits to your general application if anything changes. Let's say your GPA changes or your program option changes. You just want to hover over the term general application there, click on it, and it will allow you to make edits after the fact to that application, even after you've submitted it, before the deadline, obviously. Alrighty, and here's a brief look at that form for the global scholarships. And let's move on to talking about your statement of purpose. So your statement of purpose is 500 words, as I mentioned before. We have made some edits to the statement of purpose this year. If you have applied for any of our programs in the past, obviously many of our students applied last year for programs that were delayed due to COVID or canceled entirely. And you may be applying again for a new program. Please keep in mind that if you're planning to use your old essay as the basis of your new essay, that we have made quite a few changes to the prompt. So I will go ahead and read this new prompt here. Ensure that if you are using your old essay that you do go through and address these new aspects of the prompt. So what you want to include are answers to the questions below. What sparked your interest in studying abroad? How will your program abroad relate to your academic career and or personal goals? What academic preparation have you done for your program? How do you communicate across group differences and or conflicts? If you are a student with financial need, please discuss how this has impacted your decision to study abroad. What do you hope to experience while abroad, and how do you hope to grow personally while abroad? And finally, if you are a student who identifies with a cohort that is traditionally underrepresented on study abroad programs, please discuss how this has impacted your decision to study abroad. Traditionally underrepresented students on study abroad programs include but are not limited to students who have transferred to UC from community college, state university, veterans, first generation college students, students on programs where the majority of classes are taught in a language other than English, and students who are spending a full year abroad, as we discussed earlier in the presentation. So I know that this is a lot of information to try to fit into a 500-word prompt, and I also understand and appreciate that it may not be possible to address every aspect of this prompt within your statement of purpose, and that is okay. What I recommend is making sure that your statement of purpose reflects you as a student. So if there's a particular aspect of this prompt or certain questions here that you feel you can speak to more, then focus on those, and that's absolutely fine. I would recommend trying to address every aspect of it in some small way, just to show that you have read the prompt and are making your best efforts to follow the prompt given to you. But let's say, for example, that you don't have a lot of financial need, but you have a lot of academic merit, you've done a lot of preparation for your program, and you really want to earn a scholarship so that you don't have any financial hardship on your parents, for example. That the financial aspect of your application might not be as important. So you might focus more heavily on your career goals, or you might focus more heavily on what experiences you hope to have abroad. All of these things are really up to your personal preference and your own application style. Let's go over some tips about how to make your statement super memorable. So number one tip, make it memorable. Be specific about your background and your reasons for going abroad. So we really want to get to know you as a student. We want your personality to shine through in your essay. You might have heard when you're younger in some kind of English class that we want to hear your voice as you're speaking. We really want to hear a little bit about you as a student and get to know you and learn more about what inspired you to study abroad. And really, we want to feel that your application sticks with us after we've reviewed 10, 20 applications, right? We want to come back to the drawing board and say, hey, actually, I remember after reading all of these that there was that one student going to Korea because their grandmother was Korean and they never really got to know too much about her culture. And it's really important to them to go back and study there. Or, oh my gosh, there was that one student who was really inspired by a particular Irish poem when they were a kid, and it stuck with them, and they started researching Ireland as they got older and really feel passionate about their study abroad program in Dublin. Something unique that explains to us why you chose your study abroad program. I'll share an odd little personal anecdote. The reason I chose to study abroad in Scotland is because I was working at a clothing store my sophomore year of college, and an older Scottish gentleman came in with his daughter and ended up talking to me for an hour about Scotland and sharing so many beautiful stories about the country. And by the end of the conversation, just said, you absolutely need to move to Scotland. It's the perfect place for you. And I really, really hope that you're able to accomplish that. And I changed my program from London to Scotland that day and decided that was the path that I was heading on. And I am so, so lucky to have met that gentleman because I'm so glad that I chose Scotland. Not all of us have a unique stranger that pops into our life and tells us the best path forward, but little anecdotes like that really help your application to stand out. That's just a little advice there. We are looking for students who have found programs that match their academic and professional needs. So let us know, that what courses you've done to prepare for your study abroad program, how you're going to get on track with your major level courses as well. All of those things are really important for us to note. Also, please stay away from cliches about travel and other cultures. It's super great to know that when you're studying abroad on UCEAP, you plan to travel around the world. We really hope that you're able to do that. We really encourage that, but we don't really want to hear about what a life-changing experience you anticipate having in a very generalized sense, because it just doesn't make your application seem very unique. So focus more on your personal experience rather than cliches. On that note, please emphasize time spent in your host country as opposed to chances to travel on the weekends to other countries. Of course, you're going to travel, but we don't really want to read in your application that Berlin is your choice because it's the most accessible port for a cheap Ryanair flight to the rest of Europe. It may be the case, but we really want to hear about, for example, Berlin and why you've chosen that city as opposed to where it will take you around the world. If you're a member of an underrepresented group in study abroad, again, please explain how it has impacted your decision and ability to participate in your program. So if you are selected for a scholarship through UCEAP for one of our global scholarships, you will have a pre and post program requirement associated with that award. So we do request and require you to submit a thank you letter to the donor of your award upon acceptance. It's pretty brief. It's about 300 words, and it just explains a little bit about who you are and why you're excited to study abroad and expressing your gratitude for the funding. This really helps us in getting donors to continue donating to our programs. It's super important for us to have all that funding to be able to give it back to you as students. So this thank you letter is a really important aspect of that. Once you return from your study abroad program, you will be required to submit a 2-page report about your time abroad. And this reflects on your academic experience abroad, your personal experience abroad, sharing some anecdotes with the donor. We do share these letters with donors sometimes to encourage, again, more donations and more scholarships in the future, as well as a minimum of 3 photographs. So we love to see photos of you and your shining faces out in front of some beautiful monuments, like this lovely photo submitted by a student here. To take some nice pictures while abroad. We're looking forward to seeing them. And if with your permission, we like to use these photos in our marketing campaigns. So maybe you'll become famous and end up in our social media down the line if you choose to allow us to use your photographs that way. Here is an overview of our additional scholarships that I mentioned earlier. These are what we entitle our named awards. So you'll see on the left-hand side here that the amount for the award is listed. So the awards that you see on the screen now are going to be $2,500 as opposed to the $2,000 global scholarship that I mentioned earlier, which is the general application for all of our students. These awards are very competitive. We only select students from the top 10% of applicants once the review process has been underway. So all of our top ranking students are considered for these awards if you qualify for them. So for example, the Olivier Chancellor Award that you see there, it was only for students studying abroad in Italy. The Rose Family Scholarship is for students studying abroad in France. The Guardian Scholarship is for any students who are or have been foster youth within the foster care system. And if you qualify for any of those, within any of those categories and your application stands out, we will consider you for those awards. Keep in mind, and I will mention this later, that you cannot get these awards in addition to your global scholarship. So if you are selected for a global scholarship, you will not be selected for these awards. If you are selected for these awards, you will not be selected for a global scholarship. The reason we do this is to allow our funding to spread across as many students as possible. So you cannot receive these funds in tandem. You can receive year-long funding in tandem, and I will review how that works later. But let's keep going with some of our named awards because we do have a few more. Here are some of our memorial scholarships that you'll see below. These are specific to certain programs, and I highly recommend that you check these out and learn a little bit more about which particular regions of the world these entail. Another scholarship that I actually forgot to mention in detail here is the Bill and Olivia Alloway Scholarship. So I would recommend looking into this scholarship. This is one of our newer awards if you're considering studying abroad in the UK. I really recommend looking into this award. It's for 3 specific universities. And if you're thinking about studying abroad in the UK and you haven't yet determined which university you want to go to, please check out this award. And hopefully that will give you a little bit more incentive to pick some of those programs there, because you can receive $2,500 for applying for that award. And very few students do apply for this award because it is newer. So your chances of getting it are higher. So I highly recommend checking that out. Finally, we have some summer specific scholarships, the Gallon Family Scholarship and the Mara Melandri Scholarship. These are both for students studying abroad in Italy. So if you are studying abroad in Italy for the summer, I recommend looking into these scholarships. And also something to note, if you do go on a UCEAP program and you have the financial means and the academic flexibility for it, you can study abroad again through UCEAP. We actually have an alumna giving a speech tomorrow, or giving a talk tomorrow, about working for the US State Department, who went on 3 separate UCEAP programs during her undergraduate career. So if you enjoy your experience of studying abroad and you want to continue doing so, you are very welcome to go on additional programs through UCEAP. We also offer year-long awards. So these include our DUTTENHAVER scholarships of $5,000 each. Typically, we offer 30 awards each year. Excuse me, there's a typo here. The Chris Borton Memorial Scholarship for $8,000, 4 awards offered through our system-wide office each year, and the Paul DUTTENHAVER Extension Award, $2,500 scholarship, 16 awards offered to students intending to extend from fall to spring. So let's go over combining funding, as I mentioned earlier. So funding from the UCEAP Global Scholarships cannot be combined with funds from our named awards. Example, the Olivier Tranship Award. Students who are selected for our scholarships will receive either the Global Scholarship or the named award. Students who are going abroad for a year can receive both the DUTTENHAVER Scholarship and the Chris Borton Memorial Scholarship, as well as a UCEAP Global Scholarship or a named award. So if you are planning to go abroad for a year, there are a lot of financial incentives to doing so. You can receive a good amount of funding if you have a strong application and if you are selected for each of these awards. The review process for each of these awards is conducted separately. So your selection in one category is not going to have an effect on your selection for another. So you may be selected for all 3 of these, a DUTTENHAVER Borton Memorial Scholarship and a Global Scholarship or a named award. You can combine UCEAP's system-wide scholarships with campus-based scholarships and scholarships from an external organization. For example, if you are selected for a Gilman Award, which is a federal grant, then you can also be selected for our funding and receive that in tandem, as well as a campus-based scholarship. Different campuses offer their own particular funding, and that can be combined with our awards. You can also apply for our semester-long scholarships for each semester that you are abroad. So if you're abroad for the whole year, you want to apply for our global scholarship both in the fall and in the spring. Or if you're going abroad in the spring and the summer, do apply each term. You will not automatically be given a scholarship because you receive it in one semester. You must apply each semester and your application must be selected each semester. So just because you are selected one semester does not necessarily mean you may be selected the next semester. As the application process is very competitive, and we do have limited funding this year as a result of COVID. So please apply each semester that you are abroad. Let's go over the DUTTENHAVER scholarships really quickly. So we offer $35,000 DUTTENHAVER scholarships for year-long study, 16 extension awards of $2,500 for students choosing to extend, and preference is given to students with financial need and limited international experience. And these scholarships are supported by donations from Linda DUTTENHAVER. She is an amazing alumna of our program. She graduated from UCSB and studied abroad at the University of Bordeaux in France in 1975 to 76. And she credits UCEAP with really being a formative experience in her life and allowing her to really come to the fore as an independent young woman and really understanding her place in the world and getting to know a lot more about the world at large and expanding her horizons and perspectives. So we're very lucky to have this funding from Linda DUTTENHAVER and excited to share it with all of our students. Let's talk about the Chris Borton Memorial Scholarship. We offer 4 awards of $8,000 each. This is our newest scholarship and we're very excited about it and I'm very grateful to have this funding. The scholarship fund was established in 1996 in honor of Chris Borton. It has been offered to our San Diego campus, as Chris was an alum of UC San Diego, and he did spend a year at the University of Gottenheim in Germany. And we have been lucky enough to extend that funding to all of our UC campuses this particular year. So we're really excited about this, and I'm excited for all of our new applications to come in for these. Our year-long scholarship applications are due on March 1st and October 1st, depending on your particular study abroad cycle. So if you're on a more traditional path of fall to spring for any of our Northern Hemisphere programs, then you will be applying by March 1st. If you are on an off-cycle program, so like New Zealand or Australia or Japan, then you'll be applying October 1st, and that will carry you through from the like typical spring semester through fall. I know that's a little confusing if you're not on that type of program, but if you are, I'm sure that makes sense to you. These applications require an online form, a statement of purpose, which is actually going to be 750 words as opposed to the 500 word count for the general scholarship application. They also require a letter of recommendation, and we will go over a little bit of a few tips about that later on. For the DUTTENHAVER application in particular, it does require a statement of academic preparation as well as a statement of financial need. So those are in addition to the general statement of purpose, and they're about 250 words each. Here is some advice for your applications here. A strong academic record matters, but it is not the most important part of your application. So if your GPA is below 3.0, but you feel you are a good candidate in other ways, please use a statement of academic preparation to explain your GPA. I'll give another personal anecdote here. When I chose to study abroad, my GPA was under a 3.0. I had previously been a chem major, intending to pursue dentistry, and realized that it was not the right career path for me and I was not doing well in my classes. And I chose to switch to an English degree and ended up doing really well and feeling very content in that major. But my freshman year grades were still affecting my GPA. And I know that's a really scary experience. If you are in that position, please know that there's hope, and hopefully once you're on the right track academically, that will begin to improve. But please do reference that within your statement of academic preparation to let us know why that might be the case, because every student's experience is different. Maybe you had a personal hardship in your first year that affected your GPA. We'd love to hear about that. In your personal statement, please tell your personal story. Help the reader to remember you. As we mentioned earlier, we really want to make sure your application is memorable. And finally, in your financial statement, explain your current situation. It's really important to Linda DUTTENHAVER in particular that she sees that students are working and saving money themselves to go abroad. Obviously, not all of us have the opportunity to do that. If you're taking a really heavy course load and you have other personal obligations, like taking care of a family member, it may not be possible for you to maintain a part-time job. But if you can, and if you have any means of saving money, whether that be working in a bookstore or doing some kind of part-time work on campus, or even babysitting or things like that, Linda loves to hear about those little forms of initiative that you're taking to earn some money to contribute to your own program. In terms of your letter of recommendation, this is a question we get often from students. Should I get my letter of recommendation from the loftiest professor that I have? You know, I'm taking a general chem course from the head of the department. Should I get my letter of recommendation from them? If you have developed a personal relationship with that professor, absolutely. If you are just an anonymous face in a class of 500, we really recommend that instead of asking a professor that doesn't know you well for a letter of recommendation, that you reach out to a supervisor at a part-time job or a TA, or even you could even get one from a student worker that is maybe in a supervisory role for you. Let's say you work for the newspaper and you're a writer and the editor of the newspaper wants to write you a letter of recommendation. That's great. There's a lot of different sources for letters of recommendation, and we really want to ensure that the person writing that letter for you knows you well and can speak to your personal experience and your goals for studying abroad. Getting a letter of recommendation is a scary undertaking and something that is really good practice for students. Keep in mind, if you are applying just for our semester-long awards, you don't need a letter of recommendation. So I just want to point that out because I know that's always a point of confusion for students. But getting a letter of recommendation is something that down the line you will eventually need to do. It's really good practice to start building those relationships with professors, attending their office hours, even sticking around before and after class to get to know professors. They're really friendly for the most part and want to get to know you. A lot of them have taken on this career path because they love teaching and getting to know their students. So I know it's really scary. You just got to take that first step and start getting to know them. And even your TAs, you know, one of my TAs from my undergrad is still one of my absolute best friends to this day. So I highly recommend getting to know them as soon as you can. Finally, spelling, punctuation, grammar, and good writing really matter for the DUTTENHAVER and Paul DUTTENHAVER extension applications. Linda DUTTENHAVER was a publicist at one point in her career and is very particular about making sure that your grammar is up to par. So ensure that you are having your application read multiple times by multiple people, and your campus writing center may be a good point of reference for that, or your family members or peers. Just have as many eyes on the application as possible to make sure that you've caught all the typos that you can. Those are just a few little application tips. Finally, let's discuss our post-program awards. As I mentioned earlier, this includes the undergraduate research awards. This is a $1,000 stipend in each of the 3 disciplinary areas: humanities, social sciences, and sciences and engineering. Former or current UCEAP students may apply for the undergraduate research awards by submitting research conducted as an undergraduate while on UCEAP. So if you intend to pursue research while abroad, please ensure that you're documenting that experience, that you're saving some evidence of your research abroad, not only just to apply for this award, but for future awards, for future job applications. It might be really useful to have documentation of the research that you choose to do abroad. If you're doing research abroad, congratulations, that's really exciting, and I wish you all the best of luck with it. Same with an internship. So if you choose to do an internship abroad, please do document your experience of that internship. You may be entitled, if you're selected for an internship award, to a $500 stipend for students who submit an application and have distinguished themselves through internships conducted while abroad on UCEAP. If an internship isn't something that you've considered before, I recommend looking into it, checking out on our website, the UCEAP website. There are different program types and options, and a program that includes an internship is one of those types and options. So if it's something that interests you, please do look into that with a little more detail. And you can certainly apply for this award when you return. Finally, we have a graduate school scholarship of $5,000. It's a guaranteed scholarship towards a master's degree at the Middlebury Institute of International Studies at Monterey. So that's really cool. If you're considering getting a master's degree, definitely keep that in mind. There's a lot of perks to studying abroad, and this is one of the great ones. So I'm going to pause here for a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and open up our conversation to the chat. I do have an example essay that we can go over after answering some of the questions from the chat. Here is my contact email for you once again, if you have any questions. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording now, but I'll stick around and we'll talk about all of our questions and go over that statement afterwards. So thank you so much for attending. If you need to pop off now, if not, go ahead and place your questions in the chat, and I hope you have a lovely day.